Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. Today we're going to do my top 5 ice heroes. So I kind of started off the series with Earth because I thought that Earth was a really good one since we included 2 specialty changed heroes. So, continuing on this, we're going to go with Ice right now. Now, during the past couple weeks, we did have Angelica Montmorency released, so specialty changed Montmorency. And they kind of like shifted my top 5 list. And again, my kind of requirement or criteria for my top 5 list is like usability, like pretty much all throughout the game. So whether it's just like PvP or GVG, but also mixed with like hunts or like abyss or raids and labyrinth runs and stuff like that. Those are kind of like my criteria. And then obviously just like the kits themselves, and where I find that they're kind of like go-to heroes for certain cases. So that's kind of my criteria. And so we're gonna start off really quick here. We're gonna go and start off with my number 1. So I am going in rank order. Actually, you know what, I think I actually went with the top 5 as in the 5th one first. So I'm gonna go backwards. So I may have spoiled when I kind of scrolled down here, but this is messing you up. What's my number 1? What's my also keep in mind that in this video I will not be doing limited heroes. In all my series I don't plan to use any limited heroes, because if that was the case, Luna, Dizzy, and Diane, bam, 3 right there. But it shows how good they are right now, and even after time. But I won't be doing limited heroes in this. Anyways, for my 5th, so top 5, number 5, I think in the ice heroes for myself is Sez. I have talked a bit of crap about Sez before, but he, with a couple like content creators kind of like building him with Oxalot team comp, he's actually really good in like GVG and even PvP. Sez originally, if you watch some like pretty old videos that's out on YouTube right now, you might see some videos saying that you gotta reroll for Sez or Destina. Those are like kind of like the 2 like big ones. Like yeah, Ravi was also big there, but Ravi I wouldn't even suggest anymore because she got nerfed. But Sez never got nerfed, never got buffs, and I don't think he really needs it. Sez originally, when you were rolling for him, he would pretty much be used as a farmer. I did just preview the stats. You guys, you can see he is a Scorpio, so he takes those carapace, is that what it's called, the catalyst, and then the cursed black powder as his like awakening, and then the spearheads for the catalyst for skill enhancements and whatnot. So generally, thieves with Scorpio, pretty good health. Easily you can build Sez up to like a 10,000 HP, which means like in PvP or in PvE, you can build them with pretty decent survivability. For a thief, it's pretty high. 6,200 is very high for a thief. I think Sid is like running at like 4,900 or something like that, something like pretty low, and Sid is a really good damage dealer. But Sez also has very high base attack. Now, one of the things about Sez is that it can be his downfall, and then it's his passive. If enemy's health is less than 50% after attacking with Dark Shadow, which is his S1, you grant an extra turn. So this is his usually like an AoE, so encroach. He does get stronger with the enemy's HP lower as well, which is why I kind of felt that like mid game he was a bit hard to use, especially for PvE, because generally you're facing like, let's say, hunts or even abyss, you're facing bosses or enemies with really high HP, and he doesn't really get very strong until you can actually proc his S2 passive like all the time. But for farming, he's really good. He actually has a pretty decent base speed, as you can see his here as well, 113, not terrible. The S1, penetrate, defense, dark energy, make him unhealable for 1 turn, and this is 100%, right? There's no additional effectiveness chance, so it's 100% rate. If you have effectiveness high, then of course this goes off a lot. Now this obviously this actually does work along with his S2, but his S2 only gives a 50% chance. But it's still really good. And this does the enemy dealt proportional to enemy's lost health. So the less HP they have, the more Says does. So it's kind of good and it's kind of bad. As like I said, if an enemy has like really high HP, then it makes Says kind of hard to use. His S3 is really good for especially now in the PvP GVG meta. Very good because it does, I think it's over a 3 times damage modifier if you have a 20 soul. So if you actually do a soul burn, it does an insane amount of damage. So a lot of people like running like Oxlots, push Says up, and then just soul burn into the team. Now if you do kill, so it says inflict lethal damage to an enemy, dealing damage proportional to the enemy's lost health. But generally, if you're using it for PvP or GVG purposes, they wouldn't have that much lost health, maybe a bit. If you have like a breaker set up before, or let's say Dizzy to set up some debuffs before that. If the enemy dies, inflicts additional damage to all enemies proportional to caster's attack. This I usually call a Says bomb. After you kill an enemy with the S3, it does a crazy AoE cleave, technically a cleave onto the team, but it's not affected by critical hit chance, critical hit damage. So it's all based on attack. So a lot of people are running like Says with like 5k, near 5k attack, if not 5k attack, high critical hit damage to get that initial kill on the S3, and then of course some critical hit chance. You can run him with Tywin for the 50% critical hit buff, or even C Dominial, but again that always requires a 4-man team, so that's stuck to arena only. But regardless, Says' cleave comp is actually very, very popular because Crimson Armin is one of those really annoying defense team heroes, and she has a passive to cut damage from critical hit chance. But if the person is running, let's say Aureus with Armin's passive, and let's say you nuke out like some weakling on that team, let's say Araminta with like 10,000 HP, you soul burn with Says the S3, boom boom boom, Aureus on Crimson Armin generally would end up killing her because she's absorbing 20% damage on the entire team after a massive bomb. So now keep in mind that if you do run him with Tywin, you get the attack buff. If you do run him with Oxlots, you get the attack buff. Depends on how you build your Says. So I currently have a Says right now that's built with about 50% critical hit rate, but because I don't have auxiliary lots, I use Tywin for the crit buff with the attack buff, and generally my Says can do pretty well. He's at a 4.6k attack right now. Not the best, but I do have like pretty crappy gear on him. I don't think I need to show the build. I'll just show it, why not? Just show it, we're on the topic anyways. We'll kind of go back. He is using a 41 helmet, very old school stuff that I got very early in game. But those are the stats right now, and it does okay. Now you would need really high critical hit damage if you really want to take out those like really tanky teams. So I know that there's a couple people on my Discord server that have running Says cleave comps. Depends on how they run it, but they generally have like 220, 200 up to 240% critical hit damage to get the initial kill. Now for this build, you do need Wind Rider on, because after you kill with the S3, the attack buff from the artifact itself gets applied before his AoE strike on his S3. So you do need Wind Rider for this build to really work. Otherwise, it will not shine the way you want it to. But that's just a build thing. But anyways, that's my rating for Says here. I'm gonna try to get back, and we're gonna continue on. So on my second, or rather fourth, because I'm going backwards here. We're gonna go and talk about my fourth. So my fourth, in my placement, I'm putting in Tywin. So we just talked about Tywin. Now a lot of people will be like, whoa, why is Tywin so low on the list, especially after I show the entire list? Tywin has one of the highest base HPs for Knight. Krau is standing about to 6,400 HP. He has 6,700 HP. His defense, while lower than Krau by I think by 100, and like F Maya, he has really high HP. But his real benefit, I think, is his speed for sure. I think if I'm not mistaken, Falcon or Cleary, so specially changed Cleary, has about a 114 speed, so 4 more speed than Tywin, but that's actually after specialty change. Tywin himself gets a base of 110. That makes him a very, very good hero to get, like, you know, very high speed, and you generally would want to run him with like a speed and HP and effectiveness. That's generally, like, I would say, his primary stats to go for. And the reason is because now Tywin at this point of this recording has had a buff increased to him. I believe that before the buff he had only a total of it was an 85% chance to defense break. The guys on stream can correct me here, but he now has 100%. So he is now in game one of the best defense breakers, and we are currently in the ice meta where, you know, ice heroes are generally used on the opposing team. So, you know, if you have, like, let's say like a Tenebria, so the fire mage, running against an ice team, and even though she has a maximum of a 75% defense break, running against an ice team is not that good because she has a chance of missing, and if she misses, she can't land the defense break. But because right now most of the heroes are still ice, and ice has been going on for a really long time. Angelica, Deanne, Luna, Dizzy, though people don't really run Luna on defense, I guess. But you run into a lot of teams either in fire, ice, but there are, of course, there are earth defense teams. But again, 100% break chance is awesome. So if you actually have Tywin and you want to invest in him, I would definitely say that his S3 is worth investing in, at least getting up to +5, so you get 100% defense break. It does boost his own defense for 3 turns on himself, and it does damage proportional to his max health. The good thing about him is that both his S1 and S3, his quote-unquote damaging skills, do scale on his health, and like I said, his base health is really high, so that really gels well with his entire kit. I really do think that's really beneficial. And then the S2 is amazing as well. You can reduce a skill cooldown, and that gives it a 3-turn cooldown. With his speed, that's actually really crazy. Now, he can buff up one hero, increase attack and increase critical hit chance, but also his own. So at the same time he buffs himself up, he could grant 1, but on the teammate he can grant a 30% combat readiness. 30% is very high without any investment in the combat readiness itself. So if you're not comfortable, like, you know, investing in this skill, generally I would say that if you're using him for PvP scenarios, you don't really need to invest in it unless it's a long drawn out fight. But generally you're setting up for like a really solid kill shot, so you wouldn't really need it. Now if people do have, let's say, auxiliary lots and Tywin, for example, what can happen is you can run, like, let's say Tywin first, Oxlot second, and then let's say Sez. So let's say your team is, let's say, like Harado for a strip. So this is for PvP, of course. Harado for a strip, Tywin for a defense break, okay, and then Oxalot's S2 pump up Tywin to get another turn, and then Tywin can pump up, let's say someone like Sez. So like for mine, let's say Sez, for example, you'll pump up Sez to get the increased critical hit rate and increased attack, and then do his S3. But at this point, the entire team, hopefully 1 or 2 of them, have a defense break knocked down. So that kind of like team comp is really cool. Now, you know, it doesn't even end there, and I think Tywin is a really good supportive knight, if I haven't really, you know, reiterated that many times already. But his S1 is also really good. If you enhance this, it gets up to a 75% chance to dispel 1 buff. Now that's a really high proc rate. It's a really high proc rate, 75%. Now again, unless you're building them like with like really high health, I do see Tywin's easily with like really fast speed, like usable 210, 220 speed, even more if you want to invest in more. 220 speed Tywin's with like 20,000, 18,000 HP. It's pretty good. And the thing is, again, he's a knight, so he can be an Aureus holder. He can hold on to Aureus for you. So if you're you know, expecting incoming damage, he can really help like soak up some of that damage to the rest of your team as well. So I mean, like I said, and you know, why am I placing him fourth even though I'm so excited? It's just because, again, in my opinion, I think there are ones that could be rated higher. Martin, let's see here. Oh yeah, actually, Ensko, I'm gonna give you a shout out there. Yeah, Ensko does make a good point. In that comp that I just listed, if you're going for that kind of rotation, normal lots can work as well, because normal lots can get up to 100% CR boost if you invest in him, if I'm not mistaken, but it's 80% if you don't. I think by nature is 80% natural. But anyways, this is pretty cool. Anyways, let's move on. So number 3 is number 3 for me, and again, it has changed, is Angelic Montmorency. I wanted to put it in here, and originally slot number 3 for me was Kisei, but at the same time, like, Kisei is like good for like wyvern hunts, like decent for farming. She's not the best farmer just because she doesn't get an AoE often. She can only get it after her S3. Well, she can do it, but if you're autoing it, she doesn't do her AoE until her S3 is used, and it doesn't return quick enough. So for me, like that's why I kind of like removed Kisei off my number 3 list. But Kisei, you know, even though this is not a review on Kisei is extremely good in PvP scenarios, but if you don't know why, you should run into them on purpose. So in GVG, pick a Kisei team and you kind of figure out why. But for me, Angelic Montmorency comes third. Now, I will say that I'm kind of torn between her and Angelica. But the only reason why I would say that I'm rating her a bit lower is just because that she doesn't have a full team immunity until she gets 20 souls, until there's 20 souls for the entire team. If you read her S3, of course, this is, again, keep this in mind that this is a change to skill description compared to the regular Montmorency. Dispels 2 debuffs, spinning grants immunity for 1 healer. Alright, so sorry, one hero. So 1 hero, you get some health, you get immunity for 2 turns, and you can remove debuff. But now, if with her specialty change, of course, if you do have 20 souls, or you can soul burn it, it does it for the full team. So that's pretty good. But I would say that her major selling point for me is actually her S2. Now we're gonna take a look at her skill tree in a bit. And again, keep in mind at this point I don't have Montmorency, even the regular one. I sold her, so I can't really show you like any build. I can't show you her actual skill tree on the thing, but I have a web page open up so we can read it out. I just want to highlight a couple things on her skill tree that would be really good. But also, this increases combat readiness by 50% to the caster, so that's very good. And if you actually have what's that artifact called, something tome, like Tagaraha's tome or something like that, it actually becomes really good. So this one, Magaraha's tome. So this one is up to a 30% CR boost if you max enhance it. So plus 30 of this artifact increases the combat readiness by 30% total when using a skill that does not attack any enemies. So that means if you do use her S3, 50% plus another 30%, it is additive, so it's 80%. So she almost gets another turn right away. I would say her main skill for her specialty change is her purification, so her S2. Dispel 1 debuff from all allies. Okay, so 1 debuff from all allies, and then heals debuffed allies. So any heroes that are debuffed. Now her skill tree does actually change this skill, so I'm gonna talk about that in a bit. Amount recovered proportional to allies' max health. So that's kind of like a mini rod before your other heroes for AoE, right? You can increase the healing potential though, the healing enhancement, so that's pretty good. This one as well. But it depends on how you use her. I don't know if you need to invest in her, but if you're gonna make her one of your main healers, I would say definitely invest in it. but not in her S1, not as much. She gains, you could put enemy to sleep, but single target. I think it's up to a 50% chance here, but she gets an additional up to, I think, 75% chance with her skill tree. And then I'm gonna preview the stats here. She has one of the highest defenses for a Soul Weaver. Her health is a bit low for a Soul Weaver, but it's not terrible. You can still build her for a very, very tanky build. I think I've seen people on Discord running about like 13,000 HP is generally like the average, but her defense becomes really high. Because the 729, I think that's actually higher than Krau's defense, and Krau's a knight. 729, it makes her scaling defense really high. You can get her easily 1200, 1300 defense, I think, pretty easily. But of course you do have to pay attention to some like defensive substats, and again, depends on how you build her. Just looking at new stat. So anyways, I'm gonna look at the special change. So really quick rundown. So most of you guys actually, you would know what her skill tree is if you have her, and why you should be building her. But again, the reason why, again, I think she has to be like my number 3 is she gets an innate total effect resistance, 40% from her skill tree. Of course, that does require two places in the tree with a max rune enhancements. But if you're gonna farm her, you're gonna max them anyway. But 40% effect resistance on her is extremely high. That's base. That's without any other effect resist ring effect resistance sets. And like I said, if you roll a couple like decent substats here and there, give her effect resistance that she can easily get 140, 100, even 180 effect resistance just because she has an innate 40. So she already has like mostly like from 40% to 35%, or even 25% rather, effect resistance more than any other Soul Weaver currently in the game. So it makes if you're taking out the current PvP or GVG meta, which is just a ton of debuffs and strips and whatnot, she's just absolutely fundamental in that. Her S2 purification gets an increased like additional effects, so a ton of them actually. So I'm gonna read them off right now. So if you have 100% effect resistance or more, so again she has 40 innate, so why not build her over 100? She gets an increased combat radius by 10% every time she uses the S2. She also has up to a 10% chance to grant continuous healing for all allies for 1 turn, which is really good because I already said it has like a mini rod effect. But if it grants a continuous healing, that gives it an additional healing effect. Now, of course, that only works if you have, if you land it. One, it's procced. There's a proc chance. But the other thing is if you're unbuffable, I don't think you can land it. That's correct. It dispels 1 debuff, but I don't think there's a chance also in her skill tree to actually grant an additional debuff removal. So 25% chance to remove 1 additional debuff. But let's say if you have, let's say, Dizzy against your team, knock you out and then do like a Bazaar, I don't think you could remove that, and therefore you can't actually get the continuous healing. So again, nothing is perfect. Nothing on paper looks like, whoa, which is just amazing. It's just so OP. Now, there's always a way around it, sadly, but it's still really, really, really handy. I would say for PvE mainly, that aspect is very, very handy. On an auto run, I think she would do really, really well. She has another one again for her purification. So again, like you say, purification is an absolutely beast skill for her on her skill tree. At the beginning of the turn, if she has no debuffs, she has up to a 50% chance to reset the purification's S2, like the purification's CD, the cooldown. As you can see already, there's only 2 turns. So if you run it with that the tome artifact, and you do get a lot of turns, based on she already can get a 10% CR boost every time she does it if her effect resistance is over 100%. That's a 40% every time she does an S2. Now, every time she does an S2, she also has a chance to actually remove the cooldown. So one 1 turn. So that's really good. You'll almost keep it up almost the entire time. Now, if you do run her with like, let's say 160 speed, one thing to note is actually her base speed is actually really low though. If you do have like, let's say 100, 150, 160 speed, that still gives you a pretty decent chance. She's not a snail, so she actually still can get a lot of turns out of that. So in my opinion, generally if people are running debuffers on you, they can't keep it up all the time. I would say Dizzy is as close to like massive debuffs as any other hero, because she can do her S3, you know, put 3 debuffs on you, but then she can also extend debuffs if there's another debuffer on that team. So if you cleanse the original Dizzy's debuff, she can actually, you know, keep up more debuffs from another debuffer if she gets her turn quick, and generally Dizzy does get her turn quite quick. I know I'm talking about a limited hero, so this is a limited circumstance because you know, in the future this meta will change. Anything else I'm not going to talk about. I mean, she gets a couple stats here and there, like health stats or whatnot. I'm not going to talk about that. So, but that's my thoughts on Angelic Montmorency. Excellent in PvE, excellent in PvP. Actually, to be honest, I really hope I pull Montmorency so I can get her Angelic form, because I do think, I haven't tested it myself obviously because I don't own her, but I do think that she has a really high potential for being like a solo soul weaver for Banshee hunts. I don't know if anyone has actually tested that, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, Top is like, LOL, you still don't have her? Yeah, feels bad, man. You know, when you don't want them, they keep coming. When you want them, you just never get them. You can test for me if you want. Yeah, actually, you should. And in my mind, the theory crafting is that I think she can handle all of the poisons herself. But if you're using Tome, though, I would definitely suggest using Tome on her for that. But then it could require a pretty decent like team in terms of like damage dealing. You have to kill off those little those maids really quick, I think. You could just set up 1 turn kill for Banshee 11 instead of making runs that take 10 minutes. That's true too, but I'm talking about like, well, yeah, I guess so. If you can set up 1-shots, it's probably better than actually running on auto. I'm just thinking like, you know, if I was at work, you know, and I played Epic 7, I would just like run it on auto, but I'm thinking that she'd be pretty good for it. Do you think you'll need Tam as a secondary healer? It might, she might. I don't know. That's what I wanted to test out. But anyways, I'm gonna continue on onto my second one. So again, I think as we're getting to the top, more and more hate will come because people have differing opinions. The higher you go, the more it's just like, no, I can't believe you chose that. So for me, number 2 is Krau. All right, number 2 is Krau. Now, I know this is probably not going to be a popular opinion, but he's absolutely, you know, this could be a bias, but hey, keep in mind this is Jagan's picks of the top 5 ice heroes. Jagan's picks, all right? My opinion. For me, he's absolutely gorgeous. First, he has that full head of hair. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He looks cool. His kit is absolutely insane. Now, I got him really early on in the game. Really early on. Like, he's like maybe my third 5-star hero. I think I got Cez first and then Destina, and I quickly got Krau on a daily. Now, at the time, I was just like, oh man, he looks slow. You know, he's top. I'm not gonna say it. Krau's best waifu. Freaking. Wait, did I say she? No matter what, I meant he. Anyways, he has a cape. He's cool. No, Krau is absolutely insane. Like, I'm really early on, and yeah, I'm gonna preview his stats while I'm talking about this. I got him really early on, and you know, I didn't build him properly, but you know, for newer players, I mean, he absolutely is a monster in PvE. Like, if you're farming and you're brand new, you got Krau. I would definitely say build him up, and you don't even really need to focus on him in the terms of like a PvP build, where like, you know, you have to have like pretty decent speed. You could really focus on like what I built him as like really early on in game is just like defense and health sets and just like defense and HP. he can easily get like 24,000 HP, 23,000 HP, with like 1,300, 1,500 defense very, very easily. You can see his defense there is at 752. His health is a bit lower than Tywin, but not low. 6,405. If you guys have seen my GVG videos, I actually use Krau quite a bit. Now, lately, I've been kind of just running like speed teams and stuff just to end battles quicker. But Krau is definitely like one of my top choices. In a couple of GVG fights, actually, I use him as my sole damage dealer. Like going into the fight, realizing that, you know, I'm running like him, like Clury and a healer or something. I'm like pretty much using him as a sole damage dealer. I mean, 839 attack is not going to be really high, but if you're building him with like proper gear, generally you can get him to about like 1,000, 1,200 attack. It's not terrible, especially if the other team has no sustaining in terms of no healing. But mainly what sells me for him, again, like I said, I used him for PvE, I used him for like Wyvern 11 hunts, I run him in the front, but now I kind of changed my team out. I used him for some late Abyss. I think it was Abyss like 80, 83, 84 or something like that. I probably have to look into my archives to remember it. I remember I ran him for 2 Abyss runs, like deep Abyss ones. And he still performed really well. I think I ran him for my... for the one with the Scorpion Lady, I think I ran him. And anyways, he's a knight. He can use Aureus. People have ran him with like Elber's Ritual Sword because his S1 has up to a 75% provoke chance. Sorry, yeah, 75% provoke chance. So that's as high as General Purgus, that's as high as Crimson Armin. So it's very, very good, top tier provoker. So people run him with Elbrus, people run him with Hill-like Lance. I wouldn't probably recommend Hill-like Lance as much. But Aureus Holder is really good. Generally, he's pretty decent comped with like C Armin. So C Armin with the Elber's Ritual Sword, him with Aureus, it really cuts down the enemy's chances of actually killing you, because of Aureus passive cut down, but then also C Armin as S2 passive cuts down on the critical hit damage. So yeah, crit damage. So absolutely like really good. I think mine is at the +3 right now. I think I'm at the 65%. Actually, you know what, for this one, actually we can just take a look at my Krau, including my build, and we can kind of talk about it in a bit too. But for a while I kind of ditched him because I built him too slow for PvP and GVG. He was kind of just like a sitting duck. So if you are a new player and you're hearing this and you're watching this video and you're just like, oh wow, is Krau that good? Time to build him up. If you are planning to use him for GVG or PvP or Arena rather, I would definitely say that he needs at least 165, 170. Higher speed if possible. I am running a 35 speed boot on him. I need a replacement on this. But that can go in the future. The reason why I'm not, ditching this one is just because the substats for the 15% health and defense is really good. Otherwise, people run 180s up to 200 speed Kraus. Terror built a Krau that had, I think, Holy Sacrifice with 200 speed. That thing is super annoying to kill because, with 200 speed, likely you're gonna lap. And I think Terror has a, max enhanced Holy Sacrifice. I think he stripped Krau at this point, but it really works because generally, if you have 200 speed, as soon as he revives, he has a very, very high likelihood to get a turn. And if he's not the one to get the turn, it could be a healer. Healers are generally ran pretty quick. Could be a healer next, and then they heal. It doesn't matter. He already has really low HP, and then just S3 and then bombs, and then boom, it's over. As you can see, I am running a speed set with that speed boot at a 20,000 HP. So like I said, with his base HP being pretty high, you can actually scale it up quite a bit. I'm not going to go into like all my substats and stuff. I'm just going to talk about the skill just like as I would if I were doing this in the Heroes Journal. So S3, absolutely insane. It's a 0.3 times damage modifier, so it's not super high, but it does require, because it's 0.3 times, it does require attack. Just keep that in mind. But because there is actually an attack damage modifier in his S3, it means that if you miss someone, you actually lower your damage, right? So if you go against an earth hero, or if he's blind, and you miss, you actually do less damage, though it's a 0.3 times, so it's not that much, right? But you do lose a bit. So if you get a defense, so if you get an attack break on your Krau, if you miss with an attack break, you actually do like, you know, pretty low damage. So you just have to keep that in mind. So sometimes, like, let's say if you have like 10,000 HP, generally the reading of this, if you're not counting into the damage modifier, it's HP, 1 HP lost per damage. So if you have 10,000 HP lost, where I am right now, let's say I have 20,000 HP, 10,000 HP lost, I do 10,000 damage. But keep in mind, again, 0.3 times damage modifier. So if you're going against something like Wyvern 11, which you actually do, I think, an additional 30% more damage if you're a nice hero, Krau actually does more than his lost HP, because one, you're already doing elemental advantage, and then you get that 30% extra buff. So just keep that in mind, but it is really good. S3 is absolutely awesome. I use it a lot in GVG, and again, he can be very, very tanky, so it's very good. I do actually, for like being a soul damage dealer, I actually do use his soul burn effect, which grants an extra turn. I generally, with my turn rotation, if I do the S3 on this, you can usually follow up with a charge, the S2. So this has a combat readiness pushback, up to a 50% CR pushback though. Just keep that in mind, it's really, really good. It's 100% pushback rate though. So you just need some effectiveness to actually be able to push them back, otherwise they can resist it. But up to a 50% CR pushback, which is absolutely insane, but it is single target. But it does buff all allies by 2 turns, a defense buff that is. Now there is something that people are saying, that the reading here says damage dealt increased proportion to caster's defense. There are some people saying that no, that's actually wrong. It's actually based on caster's health. Again, I'm not 100% sure, but when I swapped his build, before I was at 1500 defense, now at 1377, I do realize a significant drop in the damage. So I'm still not 100% sure if it's scaled on defense, but from my observation, I think it is scaled on defense damage. Even though I think data mining and other people are saying that it is based on health, I'm not 100% sure on that. But generally, you know, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to see too much of a difference, because you're not going to be like, you know, pumping up his defense just to get more damage on the S2. So I would say, you know, find that balance of the HP and the defense, and I think that would be pretty good. Again, I don't know if I want to invest in Krau anymore. I got that turn cooldown because that defense buff is absolutely fundamental and a lot of survivability in PvE and PvP. So that's what I went for. But you know, I use Krau so much now that I'm actually like half considering actually even going for his S3. You know, one turn reduction on S3 actually makes a big difference. I've seen Kraus where I've miscalculated that they were actually have invested S3 and then I died to that. So it makes me like kind of tempted to do it. I'm at a current 65% chance to provoke for my Krau right now, but again, like I said, it's up to 75. Really good. And like I said, because of my usage for him, and he's actually pretty popular. I think lately we got like this kind of like interview online. Aline, you can get a shout out for this one, because Aline showed this link to me, and I think there's like this interviewer, he interviewed Ambition. So Ambition, obviously everyone should know them. If you don't know them, you must be new. Ambition is the top guild right now, and has been top for I think ever since Guild Wars started. I don't think they've ever dropped down. So Ambition is definitely, you know, a standard you kind of want to compare yourself to. Now obviously there are mega whales there are people that, you know, grind like 24/7. They probably don't sleep, they don't eat or whatever. You know, I'm not, no hate on the Ambition guild guys. They get a shout out, but I doubt they're watching this video anyway. But Krau is actually amongst one of the most popular defense teams in their GVG. So that's just something to compare to. You know, just that it's not my own opinion. Krau is an absolutely monster. Now obviously I will have to say though, Krau is he's pretty, you would think that he's pretty easy to build, just because like, oh, it's just speed, it's just health, and it's just defense. I'm finding it actually difficult to build him. I don't know if you guys on stream are actually having the same kind of feeling. Like people who have Krau, you can build him and he can look pretty good, but it's like, is he top tier? You always have that question. And where I am right now, I'm just going like, yeah, am I top tier Krau? I don't know. 53% effectiveness. Again, you want that effectiveness to be able to proc his pushback, to proc his provoke. Effect resistance on him is really good. He actually has, actually I should show this, on his awakening tree, he has some pretty decent effect resistance going for him on his base. So you really want to focus on, actually I don't think, yeah, he gets more. So at 18%, yeah, 18% effect resistance after the skill tree buffs, or the awakening buffs that Smilegate's implemented. He actually has really high effect resistance, and then one may wonder why. And in my opinion, generally when a hero and their base substats, their base stats rather, have really high like numbers, you really want to kind of like emphasize that. There's a reasoning behind that character design. So for me, I'm at a 60%. I'm not gonna chase it any higher unless I just get lucky on, like I said, you know, my replacement gear, like maybe my boot. I'm not gonna chase it any higher, but 60% effect resistance. I've been able to kind of like, you know, ignore some fatal stuff, you know, like clearly lockdown, and then just like you maybe get a defense break, but he doesn't get to provoke, which is really game changing. So I don't know. It depends on your build and depends on what you have, but I would definitely say, you know, focus on your heroes where they're already strong in and kind of like push that forward. That's generally how I kind of like to build my heroes. Your Krau sucks, says Ensko. Feels bad, man. Oh yeah, true. Yeah, well actually Ensko makes a point, try to counter my argument. He says, say that about Tamarine's attack awakenings. Yes, you know, I would say that's generally the case, but there was one GVG, if you guys remember. I was fighting a General Purgus team. My whole team lost except Tamarine. Now Tamarine versus General Purgus, it means that General Purgus can't sustain himself. If he doesn't do enough damage, he can't kill your Tamarine. But in that battle, I remember after I beat it, so obviously I won. One versus one, Tamarine versus General Purgus. Obviously I won that battle, but I remember saying at the end of that, I was like, oh man, I'm so glad that Tamarine has attack awakenings. Because I wanted that battle to end quicker. And it didn't end as quick as you wanted, but still, it's still pretty good sometimes. But yeah, you're right. I wish he had some kind of scale, you know, heal with attack or whatever, but Tamarine's already broken enough, so let's not make her more broken. Alright, so then for my last one, I kind of spoiled it, but Angelica. Now, you know, I'm a hypocrite, because my Angelica is actually not even that well built. I'm gonna show you my Angelica later, and then for people who actually use Angelica, you'll be like, Jagan, man, like worst Angelica ever, not gonna listen to this video whatsoever. But just because I don't like Angelica as a hero, I didn't really build her, doesn't mean that she's not good, right? Doesn't mean that I'm gonna say that she's not good, guys, because I don't use her. She's good, and I would say that again, one of the reasons why I would have to say she's a bit better than specialty change Montmorency is because she has the immunity buff up like right away, like full turn. And the thing is, again, if you are using her for PvE, and this is why, again, you know, in a lot of, you know, reroll videos, or, you know, people asking, well, who should I reroll for? People are like, Angelica hands down. It's because of this immunity. This immunity comes in handy when you're trying to get past world difficulty 10-10 for newer players. But again, once you get that done, you know, does that really matter? It does help a lot in Abyss. It helps a lot in hunts too. Well, some hunts, but it can help for like Banshee and stuff like that. And if you soul burn it, if you're in full control, not autoing it, not on a defense team in in arena or GVG, if you do soul burn it, it extends the duration by 2 more turns, which is an infinite loop. Now keep in mind though, it does take 20 souls, so depending on how long the fight is, generally you won't have enough souls gained back if you continue to cycle 20 souls. You do keep in mind that her healing potential is still one of the highest. She has the same star sign as Destina, so they actually have the same technically the same base stats, except that Destina is a 5-star, so she has an additional 6% on her base stats. Her speed, her base speed is, sorry, same awakening too. Her base speed is a bit lower than Destina, 88. Now compared to Montmorency, she's actually slower than Montmorency. When Montmorency was what, 94? I think we just checked that. Defense is pretty good, and HP is really good. So HP, she has about I think 800 more than Montmorency. Now Montmorency with her specialty change, like I said, has I think an additional 10% HP, so it's about 5,000. I think almost 5,000. Oh, hold on, what? That's why she has a heal barrier. Yeah, I mean, yeah, her barrier is up front too. Yes. So the barrier and immunity combo with an AoE heal. It's 5 turns. Remove 1 turn cooldown if you invest her Mola. 4 turn cooldown is very quick, and like I said, you can infinitely cycle the buffs if you soul burn it. So it makes it absolutely insane. The Origin of Life, so her S2 is very strong as well. It can heal one ally, and then also the hero with the lowest amount. So sometimes it can focus on like just one hero, but then, depending on the percentages of your team, if you do the S2 on a specific person, sometimes you could do a split heal. So for example, if you're, let's say you have like one hero has like really low, like 25% health left. Another hero has like 75%, but you wanted to split the heal regardless because maybe you're running 2 healers. You have to pretty much aim and click though, so you have to be in control. Aim and click the higher HP hero, and you'll still gain some healing on the lowest HP hero. If you're autoing it at that point though, it's going to prioritize the lowest HP hero, so sometimes it can work, sometimes it's not that good. So for like, let's say if you're running Angelica in GVG or PV or arena defense, sometimes it can mess up that defense team, but generally it's okay. Like the AI is not that dumb. If you have the lowest health, why are you not healing the lowest health hero? It doesn't make sense. Now the only thing I would say that let's say for example like Krau. Okay, so I sometimes, if I'm running against a PvP defense team and they have Angelica and Krau, I kind of play with that. I look at their speed, I kind of tune their speed, and I kind of wait. I can, at that point, like maybe like hit Krau down a lot, so like under 50% HP. So generally in the defense team, he would proc his S3 by then, but Angelica comes and then heals like a split heal with like some DPS with a low health, and then also heals up Krau again with her S2, and then it makes Krau unusable to do his S3, so above 50% HP. So stuff like that, it can kind of break you. So that's kind of like a flaw I see in Angelica, but generally, like I said, 95% of the time it's not gonna really mess you up. So that's good. I talked about this when I was comparing healers in my top 10 reroll video. I don't really think that her S1 is like super good, as up to a 25% chance to stun. Now if you do get that stun off, it's really good, but depending on your substats, you're not going to be running really high effectiveness on her. There's absolutely no reason to. So like a healer like Tamarine, for example, would actually benefit from having high effectiveness because she has a dispel, AoE strip, AoE dispel, so she actually runs high effectiveness. For Angelica, there's absolutely no reason to run high effectiveness, and then you wouldn't really run high effectiveness for this stun chance, so up to 25%. So I would say her S1, again, yes, luckily if you get the stun off, and I know there's been clutch moments where like other members of my guild have done like an insane like last minute stun and it really saved their team. Yes, it can come in handy, but is it really good? I would say not that good. I don't really like that about her. So I think her strongest portion is that one, really good stats, really good S2 and an S3, mainly her S3, her main focus. Actually, I'm gonna show you guys my build for Angelica so you guys can laugh at me. I'm not ashamed, but I'm just gonna say that I don't really use Angelica much unless I'm facing let's say like a Vildred kind of cleave comp, or I'm running idle cheer on her, not max awaken. These are her stats, so absolutely abysmal. Is abysmal the word? That can work, right? I can work. Asking the guys on stream my English. I'm running a 60% health boot on her. Because the reason why I'm doing that is because the way I use her is only for countering certain team comps in arena or in GVG. And in that case, I'm not chasing like really good substats, you know, to make up for the lost in health. So I kind of keep her with really beefy stats. Now the sad thing is, I know that people run like 170 180 speed Angelicas with like the same amount of HP and even maybe higher defense than mine. So mine is absolutely terrible. I will not, you know, even give it a defense to it. It's absolutely bad. All right, one day I'll swap a decent boot, but I think in my priority, if I get a speed boot with high you know, tanky substats, I think priority goes to Krau, right? So you know at the end of this, I'm questioning myself, why did I put Angelica first? just kidding. Anyways, I think I'm gonna end that one there. So that's my top 5 ice heroes that you know, Jagan's picks. So, you know, until next time, I think next time I'll deal with fire, so you guys get to see what my thoughts are there. So I'm gonna end this one here. So if you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. And, you know, if you like this video, obviously, you know, leave a like there. Let me know what your, you know, top 5 list is. Maybe I'm missing something, and yeah, let me know your opinions, guys. I love reading it. So I'll see you guys in the next video.